And welcome to the Township of Whitewater Region's regular council meeting for 15th of March. We'll call to order at 4:48 p.m. And just before we start and call to order, I just wanted to recognize we have a new employee here. The Deputy Mayor did introduce him in the announcements at our last regular council meeting, but just for those council members who haven't had a chance to meet him, or staff or visitors, Curtis McGonigal, our new treasurer, welcome. Sitting here, he's ready to answer all of our questions. I'm sure he's prepared and tried to read into everything, but so just easy on him today. Awesome. Our first, and I also just wanted to recognize Councillor Bell isn't feeling well today. He's made us aware that he can't participate by Zoom either, so he'll follow up and probably watch the video later. So our first item is just our land acknowledgement. As we gather, we would like to acknowledge on behalf of Council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history. And we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Good. The next item on our agenda is our prayer, and I'd like to just step aside from the prayer for a moment today. I prepared some remarks. So in honor of International Women's Day this past March 8th, I'd like to take a few minutes of today's council meeting to recognize International Women's Day and all the women of Whitewater Region. Within the corporation, we have two women on council, our Deputy Mayor Rieger and Councillor Tabbert, and we have a large number of other women employed across our departments, including our volunteer fire department. For this reason, I feel that we need to take a moment to reflect on this important day. International Women's Day is a major day of global celebration for the cultural, economic, political, and social achievements of women's past, present, and future. Acknowledging the contribution of local women is essential to realize true equality and respect in our homes, our workplaces, and in society as a whole. The International Women's Day was first declared in 1910 and first event was held in 1911. I'd like to take this opportunity to remember, to reflect on, and recognize the tremendous leadership demonstrated by generations of women who fought to secure the right to vote, equal rights in the workplace, and across the board equality and respect in society here in Canada. We also need to recognize that there are women across this globe without basic human rights and struggle for food, protection from violence and oppression, the right to attend school, or even to access health care. We are not yet where we need to be. We must all work towards a better future and the next generation of female leaders who will work to make their communities, their country, and our world better. International Women's Day is an important day for us all to recognize, and I just wanted to thank the women in our community. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Item number 3 on our agenda, disclosure of interest. I'll just go across council here. There's no disclosures recognized from the floor today. So item number 4 is our public meetings and presentations. Our first item here is 4.1, Affordable Housing Alliance. Deputy Mayor from Pembroke, Brian Abdullah, I welcome you to the podium. And I'll let you take a moment to introduce yourself and present the topic.
Okay. Is the mic on?
You can sit up here. Brian Abballah, Deputy Mayor of Pembroke, but I want to thank everyone for the opportunity this afternoon to speak to you. I'm here representing not the City of Pembroke. I'm representing the Affordable Housing Alliance of the Ottawa Valley. I like to get involved in many causes, and this is one dear to my heart that I got involved with last May. And I'm going to speak to you today about our group. Introduction. I'm going to speak to you about what we would like from Whitewater Region for support, and just to talk about a general conversation about affordable housing and the challenges we face as a whole Upper Ottawa Valley community. I'm going to talk about considering auxiliary dwellings in your municipality, and then we're going to ask that you join us in our application to the CMHC Innovation Fund so we can hire a professional housing development officer to work with all the communities in the Ottawa Valley. So basically, our group started last May in Killaloe, spearheaded by Theilheimer and Cameron Montgomery. Cameron's Economic Development Officer for North Algona, Wilberforce Township. And we spent 2 hours at the Killaloe Legion talking about affordable housing and the challenges and all the problems that exist. And we said, well, what can we do? So we formed the Affordable Housing Alliance of the Ottawa Valley, and we created a steering committee. So I sit on the committee with different political leaders from various communities, like Maria Robinson from North Algona, Bill Smith from Killaloe Haggerty Richards Township, and from Susan Cladd, MV of CAO of Madawaska Valley, and other private individuals. So basically, we're an informal group. We're not registered. We're not nonprofit. We're just a group of residents who want to promote affordable housing in the Ottawa Valley, and we want to get a conversation started. And one of the goals is to create more affordable housing, the main goal in all these communities. So we said, after we had our steering committee set up, well, what's the next step? What do we do? And so we figured that we would provide local delegations to every township and municipality that was interested. So that's why I'm here today. We've given a presentation to Bonny Valley, and we've given a delegation to Pembroke, and also Killaloe, Haggerty, and Richards Township. The second step we said was we need a local committee, local affordable housing committees in each community to do their own work, and then work with us under our umbrella steering group committee, because it's essential that this is a local community-driven project for affordable housing. So we have a committee that I co-chair with Cameron Montgomery and Pembroke, and Alex is on the committee also. So thank you, Alex. Alex is on the Pembroke committee. So it's all caring individuals. We meet once a month, and we have an action plan. There's a committee in in Killaloe, KHR. There's a committee, and we're hoping that you would strike a committee of volunteers coming from this meeting. So that's basically a history of our group. We created a W5 document that was distributed to your council, I believe, W5 document that explains basically what is affordable housing. We also created a affordable housing package for local committees on how to get started and what we're asking for. And basically, affordable housing can also be called attainable housing. There's different definitions. Affordable housing, according to Bill 23, that was recently released by the provincial government, says that affordable housing is 20% below market rate. CMHC say that affordable housing is no more than 30% of your gross income to be spent on housing. Attainable housing, CMHC says it's the same as affordable housing. Other groups say that attainable housing is if you have a family of 5 and you can't afford, an adequate house with 4 bedrooms or 3, and you can only afford a 1-bedroom apartment, that is not attainable housing. Attainable housing is according to your family size and your means. So the two are interrelated, they go hand in hand. So affordable, attainable, it doesn't matter. We still have challenges in the community all across Canada. How did we get here? Well, I'm sure most of you know that during the pandemic, the real estate boom, some landlords wanted to sell their property, so people were without a home. The other challenge is that years ago there was money for non-profit housing like St. Joseph's in Pembroke and Kinsman Court. That money dried up, and now there's new funding available from CMHC. So basically the supply has not met the demand. And so here we are today trying to look for solutions. No solution is, there's not one solution. There's going to be different solutions for different communities, and I'll get into that in a minute. So how do we fix the problem? We have 3 items that we're promoting in our group. One is the Sparrow Share Home Program, and we can provide you, Cameron Montgomery can send you the information on that. We're asking for your community to consider adopting that. There's no financial obligation. It's sort of like the Snow Angels Canada program that we have in Pembroke, where it's a website, anybody can sign up to get their driveway shoveled, and the agreement is made between the volunteer and the person that wants to help out. Sparrow Share was started by Oren Singer. They got $500,000 from CMHC, so it's a government-approved program. North Algona has adopted it. It's a short-term fix for people who don't have a permanent home. They can, the Sparrow Share puts the two parties together, and there's very strong background checks, and they see if it's a good fit. One example would be an elderly couple who are looking to maybe rent out a room for extra income, because elderly have told our group that they're worried. We want elderly residents to stay in their home, but maybe they need extra income. Maybe the person applying for the home sharing program with the elderly person is if one of them was, for example, could be a PSW that has experience. Could be a handyman that needs a place to stay. It could be anybody. So Sparrow Share is a short-term 1 to 6 month trial home share program, and it's vetted by the Sparrow Share group, and it's between the two parties. If your municipality did adopt it, you would be advertising it. There's no financial obligation. You just promote it and say, we support this program. Here's one of the innovative ways that we can work with affordable housing in the area. Down the road, if the person was there 6 months, it could turn into a long-term thing with the renter and the person in the home. That's just one example. Another area that is available from CMHC is the Rapid Innovation Fund. One example that Cameron Montgomery gave to Bonnechere Valley Township a couple of weeks ago was, and a couple have a farm, and the children are going to take over the farm, and the couple are in their 50s, and they want to plan for their retirement 20 years down the road. So they apply to CMHC and they build an affordable unit beside on their property, beside their property. This could be a two unit, 3 unit structure. And they sign an agreement with the CMHC or the Ontario government that they're going to provide affordable unit for 20 years. And when 20 years are up, they move into the unit and the family takes over the main farmhouse. That's just one example. Auxiliary dwellings are possible in rural areas, in serviced areas. Every situation is different. I know North Algona was advertising it, and they could possibly sponsor the Rapid Innovation Housing Project. So that is one area that is available from CMHC for auxiliary units. Especially now with Bill 23, you can have, I think, up to 3 units on a service lot. There's other possibilities down the road in municipalities can help with zoning. There's a association from Kingston called Tiny Towns Association. Website's tinytowns.ca, I believe, and they're promoting these pocket communities. And pocket communities are 12 to 15 tiny home structures on their own serviced, it could be serviced, a 2-acre lot, or in the rural community, it could be their own aqua water system, septic, self-sufficient. And you have a community hub in the center where you meet, and they could have laundry facilities, and it's like a tiny village in a community. So tiny homes are another possibility. The Ontario government, I've been told by different officials, aren't interested in social housing per se anymore. They want private-public partnerships. So this is where the developers and the communities work together to promote the affordable housing. The last thing I want to talk about is the CMHC Innovation Fund. The deadline is May 1st, and what we're looking for, and I can send the information to you after, to your clerk, CAO, and the mayor, but what we're looking for is a letter of support. The Innovation Fund the goal of it is that we want 4 or 5 or many more communities to come together with us, and we want a letter of support, and we want to apply for the Innovation Fund so we can hire a local project housing professional coordinator. And the coordinator would work with each community to do a needs survey on what you need for affordable housing. What do you want? Do you want to work with developers? Do you want to change your zoning? What can you do for auxiliary housing? And the Innovation Fund, there's no financial obligation. It's just a letter of support to put into our application. Because what governments like, provincial and federal governments, they like when communities go together on an application, the chances of getting the funding are better. So if we hired one person to be the housing coordinator, the person would work with each community individually for a needs survey, possible connecting developers together, because developers aren't aware some of them are the CMHC funding. You can have a developer build 20 units, and if they say 20% of them will be affordable, then 20% is paid by low-interest CMHC funding. So we need to start somewhere, and we need a coordinator to help us with this, because we can't do it alone. So that would be a possibility to hire the coordinator. I was told by the Co-op Housing Federation of Ontario, because I was considering starting a co-op last fall, and the person said, no, you're better off to work with existing nonprofit groups. So this is an example where the coordinator would come into effect, work with people like St. Joseph's Housing, Fairfields, and how do we make affordable housing work? There's different things communities can do for affordable housing. They can start a local committee, which I mentioned before. They can work with change your zoning plan to allow tiny homes with auxiliary. With Bill 23 now, it sort of says you can have up to 3 units on a service lot. You can also defer taxes for 1 to 5 years. You can have special tax class for affordable housing, where tied to affordability. If they guarantee so many years, they get a lower tax rate. They can do that. We talked at the Rural Ontario Municipal Association, went to a presentation on affordable housing. I was talking to the county about a possible affordable housing toolkit. I think that's important for this area. There's an institution called the Rural Housing Institute of Ontario. They're coming out with a database. It's a nonprofit group for each community of what's available. So these are some of the things we can do. For our CMHC application, they want $1 million of pledges in kind and property. That is something we can talk about later. But today we're here to just inform you, and we can provide more information about the Innovation Fund application and looking for a letter of support. But just to get the conversation started. And we're not creating silos. We've had Renfrew County officials come to our meetings. They want to work with us. And all the communities have to work together, because what's good for Whitewater is good for Killaloe, which is good for Pembroke, because everybody shops everywhere. They travel to different communities. So we're all in this together, and we need a team approach. So thank you for the opportunity. Any questions?
Perfect. We'll open the floor up for questions. Is there any questions from council? Everybody's thinking really quickly.
Yeah.
So maybe, oh, sorry, Councillor Trim, please go ahead.
I don't have a question, but I do think that this is. I don't have a question, but I do think this is a topic worthy of our consideration and our support. I think that we should seriously consider that. A letter of support would be a first step, and I would like to learn more about it. There's one thing that we all know in Canada, that there is not sufficient housing for the people who are already here and for the people that we hope will come here. So that isn't a question, Mr. Mayor, but it's something that I was thinking about when Mr. Adballah was speaking.
Perfect. Thank you. And Councillor Moore.
Just one sort of quick question. You mentioned that the county was sitting in on your meetings. Does this mean that the county won't be partaking themselves in what they have, a continued response to their housing industry? through the county? Is that going to change? Are they coming out of the market?
No, no, no. The county of Renfrew is still going to run the Renfrew County Housing Authority, but Jennifer Dombrowski came to our town hall in Killaloe in May. Laura Lepine, the other manager of the social services and housing, she came to our, I spearheaded a town hall at the Pembroke Legion last October. She came to that and she spoke. The county is willing to work with any group that wants to create affordable housing. So we're not creating silos, we're just working together. Because I was told by a county official that the government, they don't want to, build more social housing per se. They want private-public partnerships, and this is what Bill 23, one of the aims of it is to spur affordable housing development. So, the formula for Whitewater is going to be different than Pembroke. It could, you're more of a rural area. A developer might want to build a 20-unit affordable housing complex in Cobden and have 30% of it subsidized by CMHC or in Pembroke. But in the rural area, there might be a homeowner that'll build an auxiliary unit under their home, like a granny suite or something, a freestanding maybe, like I explained earlier. There are funds available, and I find that, and Neil can agree with me on this, I think, and other councillors, that rural Ontario is overlooked many times when it comes to funding. And, we see cities getting these retrofits and affordable housing. And I think rural Ontario is overlooked many times by upper level government. And it's a real issue. And Cameron Montgomery told a story to Bonnechere Valley, people living in trailers, people living in their car, in Pembroke, people having a good job, a well-paying job, but they can't find a place to stay. And it's a real struggle. And Jamie Bramberger had an article in the February 16th Observer about 50 companies in Lanark and Renfrew County did a survey, and the number one challenge was affordable housing. So we want to attract newcomers to our area and grow, so we can grow our tax base and quality of life. But if we don't have a place for them to stay, what are we going to do? We want to attract doctors, medical professionals to Pembroke and Cobden and everywhere. But if they don't have a place to stay, there was one doctor at the Pembroke General, he had to live in Quebec over in Waltham because he couldn't find a place to stay in Petawawa, Pembroke. And that's a real struggle.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? No, it's a lot of material. I'll just throw a couple of things. Affordable housing is something that's, for the last term of council, I know with the Seniors Task Force, it was one of the most talked about issues. The challenge we had, everybody defines affordable in a different way. Mm-hmm. And what we might think of as affordable or attainable housing is different. Just like you said, it's much in the eyes of the beholder. And in what we found just in that brief overview that we did as the Seniors Task Force was that there's a demand for, from a higher government level, to put attainable or affordable housing in communities that are already serviced. And in Whitewater, that really just pertains to Cobden. And yet, we know that there are demands in the rural areas. It's just very difficult to put affordable housing on its own water and septic sewer systems. We also know that we have a huge tourism industry along the river. That industry needs a number of seasonal workers. Those seasonal workers are looking for housing. It makes it very difficult for them to recruit and pull new people in unless they're providing their housing in. All this to say that Whitewater isn't immune to the affordable housing piece. I think this is a great initiative for us to be able to try to piggyback onto the greater group. I'd like to learn some more, and it might be more appropriate to do so just in a less formal group with the CAO and our planner, who's obviously well versed in it, to look into this into some more detail. When you spoke about the CMHC, you did refer at the very end about $1 million in pledges inclined. Mm-hmm. Can you just speak to that? Just in reference to that, the support letters and $1 million in kind?
No, we're not looking for $1 million from Whitewater Region.
No.
I'd be happy to come up with a letter. But the $1 million could be services in kind, could be architectural support, it could be land donation from private landowners. If you have a piece of land that you'd like to donate, that'd be great. But I'm just throwing it out there. But the main thing is the letter of support. But it doesn't take long for $1 million in kind or land support. I know there's been some indication from other community members in other communities that they're willing to help out in that way. But the main thing that I would like to leave with, is consideration of the letter for the Innovation Fund. Because the more communities we have on board, the better. And if we are successful and we do hire, and we can have the money to hire a housing professional coordinator to benefit all the communities, so that person will work specifically with your community on your needs, and then they would come to Pembroke and then Bonnechere Valley and KHR. So that's the goal, is to get this Innovation Fund approved, and hopefully that'll open up more doors for us.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good initiative.
Yeah.
Come together and share. If the employee's hired, who would they be hired through? The administration for that? Would it be one of the municipalities?
We would have to get, they'd be hired through, I'm not certain, I'll have to get back to you on that, but it would probably be maybe a sponsorship with Pembroke or the county, or some payroll setup or something like that.
Yeah, and it might be a good way to tie in the county in terms of oversight and tying it into Renfrew County Housing.
That's right. I'm going to be speaking to the county, contacting them this week for sponsorship also of the letter. But the county did say, the two officials said they were interested. Because the days of us versus you and all that, those days are over. We all have to work together, because that's what governments want, upper level funding governments, and we work as a team for the whole Ottawa Valley.
Perfect. So I'll just confirm from a staff direction on this one, maybe what we can do, CAO, is we'll take this information that was presented by Deputy Mayor Abdallah.
Oh, yeah.
Abdallah.
Yeah.
My apologies.
That's fine.
We'll take this information and internally kind of look at it and see if we can bring something back to council with a proposal. Is that fair?
Yeah, certainly a short report outlining the program and what a letter of support would commit the township to as it pertains to that program and the funding model and all that. Yes.
Outstanding. Thank you.
I'll send you a summary from myself and to you and the mayor of what I talked about here.
That's perfect.
Great.
If there's no other questions, well, thank you so much for your time today and taking the time to drive down to Cobden.
Oh, beautiful. I think
here,
my
so-
wife's exploring your beautiful downtown.
Good. She
So,
brought her wallet.
Looks great.
Right?
Yeah.
Good. Excellent. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for coming
Thank you very
today.
much, and all the best.
Excellent. Thank you. Excellent. Next item on our agenda is 4.2, the Whitewater Region's Seniors Home Support and Active Living Seniors Working Group. This item of the agenda is going to be first handed over to Councillor Trim as our lead for the Seniors Working Group.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to introduce Sorry. I would like to introduce to the council, even though they don't need introduction, but for the record and for the public who could be viewing, we have with us today Bonny, Johnston and Moira, who have collaboratively produced this report and the PowerPoint presentation. And so after the report, if any council members have questions, perhaps they could direct the questions through the mayor to these, to Bonny and Moira, because they really are the ones that have been living, breathing, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, this program to keep it going during a bit of uncertainty that we've had lately with staffing and whatnot. So really, I want to make sure that their work is appreciated and acknowledged. Thank you.
Excellent. Floor is over to you, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Trim. Appreciate your kind words. I'm Bonny Johnston of the Moira and Bonny group. So we're here to just give you an update. We've been here before speaking about the Whitewater seniors, the task force, and the pilot. And it's gone through various iterations, and so this is just a little summary of where we've been and where we hope to go. We have morphed from our original age-friendly plan, gone to where we kind of narrowed down to looking at the pilot with our working group, which is a little smaller than the task force. And we will be looking at proposing a new model, which is in your slides. So our overall priority is the nothing about us without us, which is basically about the engaging seniors in the community, in accessing the services and the programs and planning them with input from everyone. We base ourselves as well on building capacity in the community, so people have more access, there is more growth. And then networking, referrals to various other community agencies, and recruitment. So our priority goals are food security. These were identified. We've gone back to them several times. These have been identified in when we had a few little glitches in our staffing and so on. So we looked at what we could do with a little bit less, and what we couldn't give up. So food security, in-person programming, network and referral, volunteer recruitment, and links to well-being, which is social prescribing, having healthcare providers referring people to social services as opposed to a prescription for a medication. That, as you'll see, is under development, just because of resources, really. But it's still there. It hasn't gone. And we're trying to utilize make the most of our reduced, with our finances that have been reduced and our reduction in staffing hours as well. So food security, you can go to the next one, Carmen. Just a little overview of that. So there have been, well, this is kind of old news, but it's over 900 meals that have been provided in frozen meals alone. So that has been a really popular item. Community meals, which are provided monthly to people that are socially isolated, that are vulnerable for some reason or another, have been identified, and they receive their meals once a month. They receive a free meal that is delivered to their home by volunteers. We've been funding that through sponsors, as well as so Civitan Club has provided support for that, as well as private enterprise, and it's been extremely well received for those people that are socially isolated. And the one gentleman expressed it really well, saying he appreciated the meals so much, not so much even just because they are very good and they're nutritious, but because by getting them, it means that he hasn't been forgotten by the community. He's not out, he's not going to a lot of events, he's not able to do that, but it's really important to him. So for us, that is, it's a very important point. Moira?
So the other significant focus that we had was we became aware and very aware of, during the pandemic, the issue of social isolation. And so in-person programming was really a key area that we focused in on to help bring, when it was safe to do so, people beginning to come out of their homes, come together, and we had in-person workshops, as well as we had some fun and some entertainment. And those opportunities have really made a big difference. It's also recognizing that as seniors, we are lifelong learners, and so even though we are the age we are, we can still get out there and learn new information that might enhance our quality of life and keep us more safe in our homes. So you can see on the slide, from April of last year up until March of this year, we've offered 64 programs, and in total 705 opportunities for participants to come out and take part. And we really pride ourselves, because it is a rural area, Whitewater region, in being able to offer in-person programming in Haley Station, in Beachburg, in Westmeath, and indeed in Cobden. So we're trying to support people being able to come out, and if anybody needed support for transportation, there's a mechanism for us to reach out to one of our partner agencies to help us bring people to an in-person session. But what I have to say is our communities are very sensitive in their own wee pocket, and so neighbors to neighbors are also helping to bring people out. An example of what we're seeing is a person was recently participating in iPad training, learning how they could access and use the internet and technology to link with families and friends, and they'd never touched anything. And so with having a senior come out to that workshop, they got connected to the cohort, and they want to keep it going like an internet cafe experience, because they know if I don't keep practicing, I'm not going to remember. And it's also that social experience. Well, one of the participants came today to the soup and dessert in Westmeath. He'd never been there, and he's lived in this area forever, but connections with other seniors has opened him up to coming out to more opportunities. So it really is making a difference. And we couldn't do it without the partners. So Carmen, the next slide, I think. And we have our core partners that have really supported us, being with Renfrew and Area Home Support, Care4, Eganville, and ConnectWell, in mentoring us, because we had lots of questions when we started, and they are the people we reach out to. If a senior comes in and says, I need help with this area, we are not a one-stop shop. We have to be well-networked so that we know how to help a senior maneuver the maze that is out there so that they can have their needs met. And they've also really supported our in-person programming, because we can phone Renfrew Victoria Hospital and say, this is a topic that seniors have identified they want. And which after every workshop we ask, are there other topics? We collate all of that, and then we reach out, and then the social workers or our nutritionists say, yes, we can come out. So we're tapping into resources, and it helps them meet their mandate in providing educational opportunities, but it really helps make a difference in our community. And I'm doing this one. I had a little brain fart here. Okay, so we couldn't do what we're doing without volunteers. So you can see that we have actually so far been able to have about 22 volunteers step up and become vetted and provide support in different ways. So some are offering transportation to events, other people are delivering the meals, other people are really happy to be the meet and greeter at a workshop that we're doing. So, but it's really important that they are vetted through the vulnerable sector check, which one of our partners actually manages that for us. So Bonnie's going to be speaking in a little while about the importance that we need more volunteers, because there's more work to be done.
The next slide, Carmen, please. Where some of the major challenges, the not so happy stuff. We lost our Beachburg storefront space in the end of December, and we're still grieving that loss. And so are many in the community. We've really noticed a problem since then because we haven't the same access for the frozen meals, and we're having to actually increase our volunteer work to deliver to people who would otherwise be coming to get their meals, that kind of thing. So the numbers have gone down. People are not getting the same access, and so it has been a problem. We lost our coordinator in the end of January, but the good news is we have Margaret Moran, who started on the 6th of March, and so she's just now, unfortunately, not be able to be here this evening, but she's getting up to speed on how to connect the dots on what's going on, and it's just a bit in itself a challenge. We don't have sustainable funding yet, so we are still we're still depending on grants and writing grants and trying to figure out how we're going to scrape through. And I know that the mayor and council are also have been steadily advocating for us. So we really and truly appreciate that support. Another challenge is the increase in everything, as everyone is aware of. So meals are now more expensive, and the frozen meals are going up in price again in April, and there are no subsidies anymore coming from the province. Which has meant, and it probably doesn't mean a lot for many people, it's going up 50 cents, but when we first started with this, the meals were $5. They'll be $8 in April. So for someone on a fixed income or really limited income, that's truly a big deal. Transportation is also, it's just more expensive to go to places, and so people are limiting where they're going. So the next slide is our sort of where we're going. So our proposed governance model and how we hope to proceed, which is in order to do the nothing about us without us, we are hoping to have a planning committee, a planning meeting in next month. And the idea behind that is that we will have council representation, we'll have township staff, we'll have volunteers, the previous task force, and our working partners. So there will be a mix of people that will be at this planning meeting deciding on terms of reference, our mission and vision, updating those because they need to change. We're also looking at trying to develop more working groups that will be able to incorporate more volunteers that can recruit more volunteers. So we have a lovely schematic for that, which I didn't put on this because we're not quite there yet. But we hope that that will sort of refresh where we're at, and then more people will be involved and like Alex, maybe. We hope.
What a great idea.
Or not, maybe, I don't know. So that is where we're at with our whole seniors pilot. And we thank you for listening to us and for your support.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Joey and your team, it's excellent to get this presentation. And yes, I'll put it out, this is my little pet project, so I'm very well invested in it, as everybody probably knows. Questions from council? Is there any questions? Councillor Moore.
Just a comment. Thank you for bringing us up to date. I know since Christmas time, I've been asked a lot of questions, and I can't really answer them because I don't know. So this has helped, and we're hoping everything just goes ahead in the future. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good. And other questions? Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. And I agree, this is very near and dear to Councillor Nicholson, or sorry, Mayor Nicholson. He was a councillor at the time that he was advocating, and I've been in the room with him. He's like a dog with a bone, so you've got a good guy here. Just a couple of questions on the major challenges. On one note here, that I see barriers to frozen food access. Do you mean like procurement or storage of frozen food?
Storage, really, and storage and distribution. So, right, so we had to, before it was, when the freezer was in Beachburg, it was pretty accessible because people were actually, and they were dropping in and, you know, they'd pick up some meals just on, you know, sort of on chance. Now that it's here, and it's still accessible, but it's not as accessible. There hasn't been somebody on site, you know, all the time. We've been picking up the meals and when they've been ordering them, and we've been delivering them. But also, we hadn't updated any, as Councillor Moore was saying, people were not sure what was going on. So that kind of, we didn't update that because we didn't want to, you know, we didn't know what we were going to be doing and what space we might actually have, so.
So what's the operating plan right now? As I understand, you had the storefront in Beachburg and food was stored there, people were coming there. What's happening now?
So the freezer is now it's in the basement here in the downstairs. And I think it's taking up space of the Cobden seniors for some of the activities that they do. I think that
We have reached out to another agency, one of our partners in Beachburg, to put in a request if we could move the freezer there, and we're waiting for their positive response.
Okay.
Okay?
I do have other questions. I think I'll end up taking them offline with yourselves and with
Sure.
the mayor at a future date. Great.
Sure.
Thanks so much.
Councillor Trim.
Yes, just a clarification for Councillor Olmsted. The majority of the people who purchase the frozen foods are in the Beachburg Westmeath area, but the freezer's here, which is not really convenient at all. And so that it would be better if the freezer with the frozen food was close to the people who were purchasing that frozen food. That's the whole issue, I think.
And just to amplify, it was because we were in between staff. We had the previous staff person left, I want to say 6th of January, and the other one was just hired 6th of March. They were unable to formulate a go-forward plan until we knew we had a staff and could rely on them to facilitate that. So yes, it's a barrier right now in terms of location, but I'm hoping that we can secure a plan going forward now that we have a staff. But like you said, they're still working through those details. Good. Is there other questions? Yes, Councillor Tabbert.
So I deliver Meals on Wheels, and I deliver frozen meals from Eganville. Are those the same frozen meals here?
Yes.
Yeah, there's two companies, Appetito and Griffith. And I think Eganville just has Griffith.
I think so.
But yes, they are. So, but we get our meals from Renfrew Home Support. So we use both companies.
Okay.
Some people are very particular about the company that they use, so.
So just to highlight, that's a good point, the Eganville seniors support outside of their area and into Cobden. So the Meals on Wheels program that we have here in Cobden is actually Eganville's Meals on Wheels. They shuttle the meals here to volunteers like Councillor Tabbert. You go to Eganville to pick them up, okay? The mileage, the costs incurred for that are funded by Eganville. That is not sustainable, but they are extending that support because the demand is here and we don't yet have the mechanisms in place to do that internally. But again, with food security being our top priority, and things like our community meal program as a fundraiser, we're looking for ways to be able to fund that initiative and extend it beyond Cobden out into our exterior communities. So they could get Meals on Wheels weekly rather than one meal a month through our community meal program.
And those meals have gone up as well, or will be in April, to $10. And we're trying to find sponsors to support that as well, so it's challenging.
Meals on Wheels.
The Meals on Wheels.
Good, thank you for the question, Councillor Tabbert. Any other questions from council? Yeah, Councillor Olmsted, please.
So that's, again, I've got 100 questions, but that's spurred another question regarding Eganville coming into Cobden Whitewater District. And I see on your current core partners and mentors, Renfrew Area Seniors Home, Carrefour, and Eganville are also all on there. So do you guys work with them now? Do you share programs or?
And I think as Mr. Adballah had mentioned, like, we have to work together. And it has been fabulous partnerships because the curbside meals wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for Eganville. That's where the home of that is, and the community meals. So they're extremely important partnerships.
Yeah. Plus the partnership with ConnectWell.
Right.
ConnectWell has
Yes.
really facilitated that extension of Eganville, and that's partly because ConnectWell has also extended ConnectWell services into Eganville, has formed that partnership and then brought it back this way. So it's like a Venn diagram that overlaps
Wow,
in
yeah.
a number of areas.
I do know a number of seniors in Cobden that use it, and they look very forward. I don't know if it's one day a week or one day a month. I'm not sure of the.
Twice a week for the Meals on Wheels. Well,
Right.
Bonny would-
But I do know that the seniors in Cobden look very forward to that program. I'm not sure what program it is ever, but yeah, Meals on Wheels.
Meals on Wheels, yeah.
Great.
It hasn't been able to expand to the rest of Whitewater, and that's on our wish list as well, that one day we'll be able to do that, but we don't have the capacity right now to do that.
If you had one wish that could be fulfilled, what would it be? Would it be
Sustainable funding.
sustainable funding?
Can I have two wishes?
Sure. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people like me that don't really understand, I'm sure that I could volunteer, or my family or people could volunteer to get these meals out to people, right? I'm sure there's lots of people in the community like me that probably have an evening a week or whatever that we could probably help out. But what's your second wish?
A storefront location. That,
In the middle of Whitewater region, obviously.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and accessible. The list will go on. Good, okay, I'll
Thank
move
you so
on to my
much.
next question. Councillor Trim.
Yes, just a little further to what Councillor Olmsted was just saying. Colleen and I didn't realize, we were living here and we just didn't understand the curbside meals. And since I've been involved in this, now we're getting curbside meals, and this is Colleen's choice for date night. Is to get a curbside meal for $17. And my goodness gracious, the meal is just fabulous. And $2 of that 17 goes towards the support of Meals on Wheels, which unfortunately only comes as far as Cobden. Doesn't support the rest of the municipality. But Cobden is part of Whitewater region, and hopefully it can be. So it's a consideration for those people who would like to have a really good date night meal for $17. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Trim. Okay, if there's no other questions, I'll say a couple comments. So the first one is, and just for the township and for the public to acknowledge that since we've lost our last employee, 6th of January, until we've hired our recent one, Margaret, 6th of March, Bonny and Moira took it all on. So the programs didn't stop running. The meals did not stop being delivered. The meetings with our partners did not cease, only because these two picked it up. So just a public acknowledgement of their dedication to this and just the importance of this in the community. They're not doing this out of a sense of pride. They're doing it because they believe in the impact it's having locally. So from a significance to council, that's how significant it is in the community. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Trim.
Finally, I think we all, in the background, without enough time to do it, Ivan's been devoting extra to this too, to keep it going, because there's administrative end of it that the rest of us don't see, but is very important, and I'm sure, Mr. Mayor, you recognize that too.
Yes. Three things for council, just some situational awareness. So the terms of reference that they're referring to in this planning session going forward, and I'm leaning on Councillor Trim and the CAO for this planning session. The current organization is a working group of 4. We have realized that is not sustainable. Based on what the ministry is telling us. So this change of the terms of reference, the look at what the organization going forward needs to be, that's the goal of that. So they'll be coming back to council to say, rather than a working group of 4, we propose X. And that will be what will come to us in order to vote on and decree as an organization. So that is a very important piece for us to sustain this. Again, in order to wait for that sustainable funding to come from the Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility. Our commitment from council is $10,000 in funding and the support of council and staff. And the CAO is managing the staff side just to make sure that it doesn't interfere with other priorities, but that's been our commitment in our budget planning. And the last one is our next steps from me at strategically. We met with the CEO of Pembroke Regional Hospital last week, and she offered to link us up with the CEO of Care4. So we are going to take her up on that in order that we can get a little bit more influence on the funding and how it comes to subsidize meals and provide that kind of support and how we can extend that into Whitewater. So the CAO and I are working on that on a side, okay? So we're still trying to make progress. CEO, is there anything, or CAO, am I missing anything there?
I would just add that the staff will be working with the working group and Margaret, our new senior liaison coordinator, and Councillor Trim to sort of develop the terms of reference and this new governance model. So that will be presented back to council within a staff report. It won't be through delegation, it'll be a staff report. And the one key thing I'd like to note is that if ever we were to secure permanent funding, the province would require that a governance model would exist similar to what we're trying to establish now. So the work we'll do now will lend itself well if we get secure permanent funding in the future. Thanks.
Good. Thanks, CAO. Excellent. Thank you, ladies. Have a good night. Excellent. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, item number 5, which is announcements. And I'm going to kick it off with a little bit of a report again. Over the period of 1st to 15th March, I attended 21 meetings and events on behalf of council. The first weekend of March was especially busy with lots of different events scheduled to start off the month of March. I also attended the County of Renfrew inductions to the Agricultural Hall of Fame, and congratulations to the inductees Gerald Rollins, who I learned was also a key founding member of our Muskrat Watershed Council, Dennis and Diane Briscoe, and Stewart and Vera McBride, who you might also know because of their connection here with the Cobden Egg Society and the curling rink. We also had a meeting, the CAO and I did a delegation to the County of Renfrew Planning and Development Committee to discuss the expansion of the Renfrew County Trails Network into Whitewater region. So we're continuing to make progress on that. The upcoming 2 weeks are expected to be a little more quiet. My focus is now on shaping our strategic planning sessions with the CAO. We know that we have a number of items that we need to discuss and we cannot achieve everything, so we're trying to establish ways to, for short, medium, and long-term priorities. The Deputy Mayor, the Clerk, the CAO, and I did meet to work through a plan to schedule some additional delegations to Council. 2 of those occurred tonight already, and the balance will be scheduled as we move forward. The intent, again, is to ensure that Council and our public has an appreciation of the committees and boards that we participate on, because we participate on behalf of the public. For Councillor Bell's lead, the responsibility of recreation, we're examining an option of having a committee of the whole meeting, where we would invite all of the different the many different community recreation organizations into the meeting and focus specifically on recreation topics to benefit both council and the rec organizations, rather than do 10-minute presentations on top of another meeting. So you'll see the Deputy Mayor, the Clerk, the CAO are looking at some options there. And lastly, I just wanted to shine the light on one of our businesses this week. The Little Coffee Shop had its 3-year anniversary this week and wanted to celebrate an official opening since it was not able to do that during COVID. So congratulations to Irene, if I got that, Irene and Melissa. They're doing a draw and have offered a free skate at the arena this weekend, and I think you can get more information off the social media feeds. Awesome. Deputy Mayor, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no hires this week. Happy to say we're there. Yay. Pass on that this having a pancake breakfast in Beachburg at the Lions Hall, and it's from 10 to 1, and pancakes, bacon, sausage, eggs, all of the good stuff. So come on out and enjoy and support our local firefighters. Thank you very much.
Councillor Tabbert?
I just have one. Every Tuesday evening at the Legion, the Ottawa crafters host a crafting night. Mostly sewers come out, but there are some crochet and knitters who are there. So it's free of charge, and it's from 6:30 to 9 o'clock with packing up starting at 8:30.
Councillor Moore?
I sure do. Thanks, Kathy. You took my first one. And just so everybody realizes, the firefighters' breakfast in Beachburg is not from 7:30 to 11. It's from 10 until 1. That's the difference with the advertising of breakfast. It's not an early morning. So I guess the firefighters don't like to get up early. In keeping with that, the Cobden firefighters are doing a breakfast on April 1st at the Cobden Eye Hall, and this is in conjunction, I guess, with Easter celebrations, because on the 2nd at the Eye Hall, there's a Easter market from 11 till 4. And then on March 25th, the Beachburg Lions Club is having takeout dinner again, and it's chicken parmesan. So I have the phone number, and you have to order by March 19th. And that is my announcements. Thank you.
Good. Councillor Olmsted, I'll reverse the order here.
Well, you caught me off guard. All the other members took all of my announcements, believe it or not. So I'm left with nothing. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Trim?
Yes, there was one left. You can check the WDRA website and you'll find out about their Irish-themed pub night Friday, St. Patrick's Day. Yes, all the details are there, and anybody who has attended their other pub nights have enjoyed it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent, thank you. Oh, and an additional announcement, Councillor Tabbert.
Well, I left it for Councillor Trim, but
Oh.
the Whitewater seniors are hosting conversations about end-of-life options with Dr. Katie Forfar on from 11:30 to 1 on March 23rd.
Where?
That's what I don't know. It didn't say, so I'd have to. Oh, you know?
Do you know it?
Oh, yeah. It doesn't say. It just said Whitewater seniors.
Perfect. I'm sure there's more information available on our website.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. And thus end us announcements. The next item on our agenda is reports. The first item is tree planting memorial for David Stewart. The recommendation in front of us is that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approve a commemorative tree planting at Veterans Memorial Park in Cobden in honor of David Stewart. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Trim, Councillor Olmsted, and CAO.
Yeah, thanks so much. So the township was approached by Norm Ottawa to plant a tree at Veterans Memorial Park here in Cobden, where our tourist booth is, where the band shell is, and there's another play structure there, in memory of the local resident and former councillor of the Township of Whitewater Region, Mr. David Stewart. So he's indicated that he would work with the township to find an appropriate location at the park for the planting of the tree. So council will be well aware of the passing of Mr. Stewart. He served as a reeve for the town of Cobden, or the village of Cobden, between 82 and 2000, and sat on Renfrew County as the warden for 2 years in 97, 98. Council held a moment of silence at a previous meeting. So then, if council is supportive of this approach, we've only, as in my recollection, had one other tree memorial planting for the late Patricia Moore, former employee of the Township of Whitewater Region, and that tree still stands today at the Veterans Memorial Park in a location near the tourist booth. I've sort of received this submission through our commemorative naming policy. So we have a policy for commemorative naming, say it would be the arena or another one of our facilities. So the next steps, if council is supportive of this, would be to post a 10-day notice on our website to receive any public comment. And if we don't hear anything, then we'd proceed with the planting of the tree. We would organize in the spring with Norm so as that the unveiling of the tree would occur at the same time as the service for Mr. Stewart, which is to occur this spring. So staff are supportive of this. As it pertains to cost, it's quite minimal in nature and could be absorbed within our operating budgets. Thanks so much.
Thank you, CAO. Questions or comments from council? Excellent. The only thing I would add is this, and we'd mentioned it before, is amending or taking another look at our policy for commemorative naming to include things like tree plantings, just to make sure that we have a weighted process requests that approach us of this nature, and treat them all with the same lens. So I think the CEO mentioned he's going to add it to his list of things to amend. So does that create any other questions or comments? Nope, then we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you.
Oh. So apologies, we do have Norm with us for the members of council that are around the table. Norm, if through you, the mayor, if you wish to provide an opportunity to Norm to speak, you're welcome to do so now. My apologies.
Yes. Norm, my apologies. I was not aware. So we'd like to give you the floor. You have a moment to speak to council and address, although you already have our support, so it would be, we do appreciate you taking a moment, though.
Oh, his mic's muted.
Oh, and your mic is muted. Yep, there you go.
I appreciate council's thinking towards David. I've known David for 20 years. I've known his wife for 60 years. And he was also the brother-in-law of Ted Barron, who was a prestigious person in Cobden for forever also. The original intention was just to have something like a small tree planting for the family. But then Ivan and I have been communicating, and he suggested that maybe council could do something slightly larger, like maybe a plaque or something to commemorate David's service to the community. I think, 18 years as Reeve and all the other boards that he sat on in the years, he's been a lifelong forester. And we thought rather than flowers for his ceremony, we would plant a tree instead. So that was my original thought.
And I can't think of something more appropriate, just based on his contribution to our community, and especially being a forester.
Absolutely. He was a lifelong forester. He went to UNB in forestry in 1959, and he's been a tree hugger his whole life.
Excellent. Well, it's quite clear, council's in full support of this, and I'm very confident the CAO will be able to work with you and your team to get this on the scheduled and figured out. So thank you so much for taking the time to come online with us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Excellent. There's no one else, right? Okay. Good. Excellent. We'll move on to the next agenda item, 6.2, which is the Delegation of Authority policy. The recommendation is that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approve Bylaw 2303-1585, being a bylaw to establish a delegated authority policy, be taken as read and passed. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Olmsted, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. And CAO?
Yeah, certainly I could review this report. So essentially what we have before council is an amendment to the Delegation of Authority bylaw. The two changes essentially relate to employee titles. So we're Deputy CAO, we've just amended it to include the treasurer. So Curtis, as it stands now, is not also serving as a Deputy CAO, just as a note. And then the second item is with respect to changes to the provincial legislation around Bill 23 and the like. Alex presented a fulsome report to council at one of the previous meetings. One of the resolution that was passed was to direct staff to make amendments to this policy to reflect the changes at the provincial level. So item 74 in the policy speaks to site plan control approval, and that it be delegated to staff, being myself, and I could extend that delegation to another staff person if I wish. The item there for the members of council is that while the delegation of the approval is to myself, to enter into a site plan agreement, we would still come to council to have the mayor and the clerk have the authority to sign that agreement. So council will still see site plan agreements, and I think the piece here is that we've always generally processed these applications generally relatively quick. However, maybe in other areas of the province it was a bit lengthier, and the council process may have been a bit lengthier, but the process we've done in the past will remain the same, such that we'll approve the drawings, the engineer drawings, and the draft site plan agreement, but we'll still come to council with a final agreement to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign it. So no major changes, but just we've put this in our policy. So that is a summary of the changes. Pretty straightforward. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Thanks so much.
Perfect. Thanks, CAO. Any questions or comments from council? And I see none. So we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And the motion is carried. Excellent. 6.3, Deeming Bylaw, portions of Plan 65. So the recommendation is that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approve an enactment of Deeming Bylaw for the lands described as part of lots 297, 304, 305, 306 of Plan 65 in the geographic village of Cobden in the Township of Whitewater Region. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Trim, seconded by Councillor Moore. Back to the CAO?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'll just, this is a transition file, we'll call it, and so I'll present it. And it's not one that's easy to explain, but I'll try my best. Essentially, we have these 4 lots in an old plan of subdivision for the village of Cobden. This is Plan 65. It dates back to the late 1800s. So 1890 something, I believe. But essentially, this plan of subdivision protects all of these parcels. So all of these parcels exist when they transferred to this new Land Titles Act and the changes. So what's happened is there's a proposed severance of some of the lots that are shown in the yellow block in front of you here. And in order to remove the plan of subdivision protection that we, the township, hold, we pass a deeming bylaw to remove our protection and allow for the severance to proceed. So without us passing the deeming bylaw and removing our protection, the plan of subdivision protection on these lots, then there might be some complexities in future transfers of these lots. So it's kind of a formality, if you will. It'll allow for the severance to proceed, and it'll allow for any future transfer of lands to be done without any complications. So formality, if you will, and staff and the applicant's lawyer is also supportive of this deeming bylaw. So next steps would be to register the bylaw, and that'll be done by the applicant's lawyer, so at no cost to the township, and that'll finalize the deeming bylaw on title. Thanks so much.
Excellent. Thanks, CEO. Any questions from council? Yes, Councillor Olmsted.
So the highlighted 4 lots, is that currently 1 lot then? Is that what I can take from this conversation?
This will be fun to explain. So the one to the south of the yellow block is one separate lot. It's not highlighted there, that's 1 lot.
Yeah.
The 3 other lots that front on that street are essentially 2 lots. And 304 is part of 306 and part of 305. It's a bit confusing there.
And there's a dwelling on,
Each of these, yes.
so there's a dwelling not combined on 305 and 306 now, I think?
There is, yeah. So
Yeah.
304 is the severed parcel of another application that's been considered by the Committee of Adjustment. It's been
Yeah.
approved. And so 304 will be severed from 306 and part of 305 and sold as a vacant lot or developed as a vacant lot.
Understood, thank you.
Thanks.
Trigger, any other questions? The only question related to the previous agenda item. Is a deeming bylaw necessary for council? Could we delegate this down, Committee of Adjustment or staff?
I think because a bylaw needs to be passed, the municipal act would require us to bring it to council.
Okay, good. I just wanted to see if there might be a more efficient way. Okay, excellent. So if there's no other questions, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And the motion's carried. Thank you. Excellent. 6.4, procedural bylaw amendments. So the recommendation is the Council of Township Whitewater Region pass a bylaw to amend the procedural bylaw number 2009-1318 to reflect changes to the procedural bylaw, including definitions, order of business, and regular meeting times. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Olmsted. Good. And Clerk, you take the lead, please.
Thank you. So what I'll do, okay, so just a quick analysis. Staff have gone through the procedural bylaw. We've made a few housekeeping changes, and hopefully it will better reflect business day to day. Some of the changes we've made are including clarifying definitions. We've also changed, or we're recommending changes to the proposed time for meetings, and that will allow better work-life balance for staff. So if you want, I'll just go through it. The high-end changes that I made, clarifying or grammar errors not included. So the first thing I changed was Councillor Lead. I believe it had chair here, so we just reflected the Councillor Lead as that's what your titles are now. The second part would be the meeting times, I believe. Staff's recommending that the first Wednesday of the month, meetings are held at 1 o'clock. The third Wednesdays of every month, the meetings would be held at 4:45. The first meeting of the month would be from 1 o'clock to 4. The third Wednesday of every month from 4:45 to 7:45 with the allowance of one extended beyond the regular time of 30 minutes. If at that time business is not handled, the meeting will reconvene at Wednesday at 1 o'clock the following Wednesday. Questions? It's good?
We'll go all the way through.
You want to keep going through? Okay. Clarifying issue here on item 13.1 that it's to the right of the clerk would be sitting to the right of the mayor. Sorry, just let me scroll through some more. Order of business. I apologize. I thought I updated the, oh, this is it, isn't it? This is the right. Okay. So the new order of business will be called to order, the Canadian anthem and the land acknowledgement. Third item would be adoption of the agenda. The fourth item, adoption of minutes. Those minutes may include or will include council and may include committees and boards if they happen to be during that period. Item 5, disclosure of interest. Item 6, presentations. Item 8, public meeting. They've been separated to better public addressing, I guess, just so that presentations, we only allow 10 minutes, whereas public meetings may have a bit longer meeting time or discussion time. Item 8 will be the mayor's address. Item 9 will be public comments. Public comments I'll address that after. Okay. Item 10, reports. Item 11, notice of motion. 12, correspondence. 2 items for that. One would be if there's items that require direction or if there's just information items. 13 would be announcements, bylaws, closed session, and adjournment. So just to highlight some of those new order of business, the first one would be the public comment. So we're suggesting that that we allow up to 4 public comments for people who want to discuss any item on the agenda coming forward. So a week prior to the meeting, they would send the clerk any questions they have. We'll allow up to 4 comments. Written material received shall be forwarded to council on receipt. Individuals speaking on an item on the agenda shall be limited to 3 minutes each person. The clerk will circulate any received public comments to council. Council will not ask any questions or enter into any debate or discussion on the subject matter in the comment period. So the public can have their say, but discussion will be held when the report comes forward later on in the report section. A little, just I guess, a reminder or FYI that when reports are due to the clerk in order to get the agenda on time, again, just a more definition on what correspondence that require information or direction. Something new, announcements. The items under announcements will no longer be recorded in the minutes. We do have them in the video. They get put on our Facebook, social media, so I will not be recording them as minutes anymore, or in the minutes. And that, I believe, is the biggest highlights of the bylaw. So if there's any questions?
Excellent.
Thank you.
Go around the floor. Thank you, Clerk. Any questions?
Yeah, I'm just reading through here, and just the one that comes to mind is when somebody comes to speak. I'm just going through my head on this. When somebody comes to the podium to speak, the requirement for them to write their name and addresses on at the podium. Have we eliminated that by requiring them to submit their comments previously?
I'm going to divide that to 2. The comments, we called it.
So would I find that under the public comment portion?
No, you're speaking to the public meeting portion that we have before, like a zoning bylaw review, et cetera, right?
Yes.
And public coming in and having to register in order to speak?
Yeah.
I'll let the clerk clarify exactly what that is, because I know it was discussed between the clerk and the CAO.
so those are two separate things, but I'm required to get names and addresses and phone numbers or information. It is public, and it's written on our website, and it's written, and it's, I don't know if the Municipal Act, maybe the CAO can also help me out with that, but we require it in case matters go to court or whatever. It is, and it's noted that it's made as public. When they submit stuff, it's noted that their submission may be made public or
Right,
can
so-
be made public.
And I have no problem with that portion being made. I'm just worried about addresses being made public. So I have no problem with if somebody coming to speak has to report their name. I am concerned that they have to make addresses public. Obviously, there are subjects that get hot. We get hot tempers sometimes, but I'd like the ability to redact addresses, not names, but addresses from the public record.
Yeah, CAO, please.
Yeah, I think the primary opportunity for the members of the public to speak in a public meeting agenda item, not the present delegations like we had tonight, is mostly related to a Planning Act matter. Their name definitely has to be indicated in order to give them the right to appeal a decision of council. What we can do as an alternative to them announcing their address would be to communicate with them separately to just get that information. So maybe that's the approach. The procedural bylaw doesn't speak to that. It's more of a Planning Act public meeting piece where people will have to verify that to see exactly what information they need to give us. But we could only require the name and collect their address separately on a piece of paper or something like that.
Good, so we'll take that one away. I think that's an appropriate measure to take. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, through the chair. Just real, on appeals though, we have to have, it's public information, their names and addresses. So if somebody came to the office and asked for that, I'm required to give it to them. It's accountability and transparency. It's part of the accountability and transparency. But there is different ways, like you said, we don't, that we can collect that information without.
Yeah. So I think what we talked about, in the public, when they come and they register in order to speak as per the Planning Act, we can take their name and then collect the other information individually. But that name and address is public issue, and its distribution will be controlled through the clerk based on anybody coming to them and asking for it. Is that correct?
I think, again, Carmen and I will have to work through it, and Alex as well, but certainly the mechanism by which we release that information, whether it's through a freedom of information request or what may it be. But again, I think in those cases, the addresses might be redacted, but we'll work through it to ensure the privacy of the individual speaking at a public meeting, certainly.
Yeah.
If we have the ability to.
So just to clarify, we'll leave the part at staff then, is that, I guess from what Councillor Olmsted is saying, if I can put words in your mouth, is that in a public meeting, in this instance, we'd prefer if they only register by name, and the remainder of the information, although available, gathered by staff, is not available to the other people present at that meeting until required as per whatever act applies. Is that fair?
Yeah, very fair. And I'd have no problem. They've got, I think typically they have to be a Whitewater resident to be able to speak to these, so I have no problem saying Mrs. Smith, Whitewater resident at the podium, and then submit an address to staff that night or later date or whatever, okay. Or previously, perhaps.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Tabbert.
Through you, so following up on Councillor Olmsted, so anyone can come into this office at any time when it's open and say, I want the address of so-and-so who was at this meeting, and we have to give it to them?
So this came up in the last council meeting between request for information, and we clarified that policy. I'm slipping on the name of the policy. Routine disclosure. So in that routine disclosure policy, it dictates what and how the information is distributed to the public. So there is a policy, we've agreed to it as council, and it's been implemented. But under certain circumstances, you can ask for certain pieces of information. But I'd ask you to go back to that policy to clarify. Good? Any other questions or comments on this? Good? Yes, Councillor Tabbert, round two.
Oh,
Then the Deputy Mayor.
In the order of business,
Yes?
I noticed that there is no longer a prayer. We're not saying a prayer since we are saying a land acknowledgement. Do we not have our prayer still?
At this point, we've taken the prayer out and placed the Canadian anthem in its place. Yes.
So we're going to be singing instead of saying a
Yes.
prayer? We're singing.
Yes.
We aren't having canned music. We will
No,
be
no,
singing
no.
the anthem.
The intent is that we would use the similar presentation prepared to what was seen at county, where it's music and it's music and singing, sorry? And with stills of some photos from the community.
Okay, I disagree with taking the prayer out.
Noted, thank you. And Deputy Mayor?
thank you very much, Mayor. I was just going to suggest if there weren't any other changes or any other issues, if we could bring this forward tonight under bylaws as a friendly amendment, and then that way we can begin our April 4th meeting, April 5th meeting in the afternoon. But we do need to, we would have to pass that in bylaw tonight in order to achieve that April 5th meeting. So I guess I'd be looking for a 2/3 vote to see if we could do that.
Good. Clerk, can the order of that?
So if my suggestion would be let's clear this motion up first. If there's any amendments, we can approve this as amended, and then when we get to the bylaw section, somebody could pass, say, a vote to 2/3 votes to attach it to the agenda, to the bylaw section. So as it stands, this resolution reads that the Council of Township of Whitewater Region pass a bylaw to amend the procedure bylaw to reflect the changes, including definitions, order of business, and regular meetings. If there's no objection to this bylaw, like if it's going to pass, we'll pass it as is. And then when we get down to the bylaws, we will do a 2/3 vote to pass
Add it to the
bylaw number,
agenda at
yeah.
that point.
Okay.
Good. So Deputy Mayor, I'll get you to hold on to your proposed motion and we'll bring it forward at item 10 of the agenda. Thank you. Councillor Moore.
A couple of things, one being the order of business and how that ties into our afternoon meetings. Will we be having presenters on the afternoons, or will the presenters being held till the meeting only at 4:45?
Clerk, do you want to try and then I can?
So like the presentations, is that?
Yes.
So
When we start at 1 o'clock.
through the mayor or even the CAO, my thoughts is we would organize them as appropriate, as they can, whatever we can accommodate. If they can't make a 1 o'clock meeting, then we would have them at the following meeting. Which would be my thought, is just give them their preference. We have a 1 o'clock meeting or we have a 4:45 meeting. Which would you like to attend?
Okay, so we won't be staying then after 4:45 for presentations on the meeting in the first of the month?
Correct.
Okay.
And then through you, Chair, if I might just add too, and I guess that's where public meetings, we'll try to keep the public meetings on the third Wednesday of the month, just to facilitate our public meetings so that we can have a public support with them.
Yes, because I'm sure we can do some of the public meetings both at either, but there is some stuff that's sensitive that people are working, they won't be able to take part, so. So we are going to change it from having 2 presentations to 4? That's what it says.
No, there's 2 different types of presentations.
Okay.
There's presentations, and we used to use the term delegations.
Right.
Those are 10 minutes. I think 2 is the max.
Okay.
But then in public comments, we're allowing 4 3-minute public comments,
Okay.
up to 4 public comments.
Okay, and I have one other question, and this goes to the clerk. 29.4, there's some kind of a glitch in there. Can you read the first line?
Oh, a typo. Clerk? Oh, the version we have on our system
Okay.
has been updated, and she has that typo corrected at 29.4.
Okay, well, I
On the
was running
screen in
off
front
my
of
old
us.
form. I wasn't looking at the new one.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good?
thank you. And other than losing the prayer, I'm in favor of everything.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Moore. Any other comments or questions from council? Good. Then we will call for a vote. All those in favor? And motion is carried.
You should call for a non-favor as well.
Oh, and one opposed. Thank you. I'm just remembering back to my first term of council, and there's a weighted, anyway, we'll come back offline on that one. Good. Next item on the agenda, 6.5. Actually, what we'll do is before we get into 6.5, I'm going to call a 5-minute recess. So time now is 6:24, and we will reconvene at 6:29. Excellent. Welcome back to the Township Whitewater Region's regular council meeting of 15th of March. We're going to call ourselves back to order at 6:31. Next item on the agenda is 6.5, the Animal Control Bylaw Amendment. The recommendation is that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region receive the proposed amendment to the Animal Control Bylaw report for information purposes and direct staff to consult with the public in accordance with the public consultation and community engagement policy. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Tabbert, seconded by Councillor Trim. And Clerk, over to you for presentation to Council, please.
Okay, ready? You're all ready for this one? Yeah. So again, after our public engagement at the zoning meeting a little while ago, we decided, well, it was very clear that we need to make some changes to our kennel bylaw or to our animal control bylaw. So we did make some changes to the kennel bylaw. And I'll do the same thing as I did with the procedure bylaws. I'll just go through some of the high-level points that of changes that we added or tweaked. So one of them is the definition of dog. We didn't have a clear definition of puppy for dogs, so we've decided that maybe 12 weeks would be a great. After 12 weeks, they are now a dog. Again, a few more changes. There was no regulation on a maximum for kennels, so we put from 4 to a maximum of 20 dogs, adult dogs, so over 12 weeks of age. Licenses expire December 31st. You must renew by March 31st. And kennels. We added some, so from 4.3 all the way down to I believe it was 10. And I don't know if you want me to go through all this, but we definitely are doing a bit more regulating. And with the opportunity that if our bylaw control officers or any kind of officers that we have going in animal control, if there's any issues with animal welfare, it goes right to the province. We will not regulate animal welfare. So we're going to look after the kennels and the size of kennels, how to apply for a license. You have to conform with the following requirements, with certain requirements. And I do believe somewhere it does say that we can add extra conditions if we see fit. And just section 9 under investigation, I just wanted to highlight this. There was no change, but I just wanted to highlight that we do allow for investigations. And another highlight I wanted to point out was the offenses. I thought this was very important that every day a contravention continues, it may be deemed as a separate offense. These are not changes. This was in the existing bylaw. I just wanted to point out that we do have this opportunity to do that. A few changes to our short form wording as well. If for a kennel, I think it's up to $1,000 now. There it is right there. To operate a kennel without a license is now, the fine is now $1,000. It's not now, it's proposed. And I think those are the biggest highlights. So if you have any other questions, or if you have any questions or want some more clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk. And this is a complex one with a lot of moving pieces. So as you saw in the recommendation that we just moved and seconded, we're asking staff to go out for the next following 2 weeks and collect feedback from the community. It will be then brought back to council for us to actually accept the bylaw. So you do have an opportunity to collect information from the public yourselves and to discuss it and bring that feedback as well back to council. So we don't need all of the questions tonight, or you don't feel like you have to have it perfect tonight. This is really for you to receive it formally, acknowledge the timeline that's been proposed, and then we can go forward with that plan. Now, based on that, we'll take any questions or amplification that you'd like at this point in time. So, Councillor Trim.
I have a few things, and some are very simple. I do realize that. Sorry again. Do realize that they're not pages aren't going to be numbered 1 of 9 every page, so I understand that. 4.5, it's not clear about may enter and inspect at any time. Is this with or without notice?
Clerk.
To me, it would be without notice.
Okay, fair enough. It wasn't clear on that.
Good. So are you proposing that we add in without notice? Do we need to specify that?
I'm thinking that what I've heard from the community is that if notice is given, then everything is cleaned up, and that's the only time it's clean. And so what I think, not trying to put words into other people's mouths, but I think that people are expecting that these kennels can expect to be inspected regularly, and it could be with or without notice.
Okay, so I'm going to take the word regularly out because of the schedule, but with or without notice,
Okay.
I think is appropriate. We'll
Okay,
take that
so-
as input and we'll reconsider in 2 weeks. So thank you, Councillor Trim. Is there another one?
Yes, I've got a few more. Number 46D. It's a little confusing because there's 2 units of measure. So we're using square meters and 15 square meters, and then we change to 60 feet. Additional 60 feet per dog, and I don't understand that. I don't know if it's 60 square feet but anyway, it's not consistent.
Okay, point taken. We'll add that for.
And then if you go down to 4.8, it's just a typo, a D on revoked.
Yes.
And in 7.4, it refers to a committee appointed by council. And earlier on in the document, it referred to that committee to be the Property Standards Committee, and I wonder if it's the same committee.
It is, and the Property and Standards Committee is also our Committee of Adjustment. They're one and the same.
Okay, so that, and 9.0 investigation, I don't understand it exactly. For the purposes of discharging the duties imposed by this bylaw and to enforce this provision, any agent of the animal control officer or bylaw enforcement officer or any police officer may enter onto any public property and into the structures thereon, and with the consent of the owner or occupant upon any premises upon which it. So it's not clear to me. It seems like these enforcement officers can enter, and then only with permission. So I'm not certain I understand that.
So we can get that clarified, but I think that's referring to both public properties and owner-occupant premises. So there's 2 different types of properties being referred to in that paragraph.
Okay, that wasn't clear to me.
So maybe we can look at different language just to make sure that that is clear.
And that's, and as I said, just minor things that I came across.
Good, thank you for the feedback. And Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Councillor Trim. You took a lot of mine, so I'll stick to just have 2. 3.8, Clerk, guide dogs with meaning blind person rights. They are the only dogs that are self-help. No other dogs, only seeing eye dogs are exempt. So no other self-help dogs are available or allowed to be exempt?
For licensing?
Yes.
Correct, and I believe that is because, and I'm sorry, it's been a while since I had to do this, but service dogs don't actually, I mean, you can have a service dog or a service frog or a service fish or a service, so it's harder to regulate. Anybody can have a service animal, but seeing eye dogs or special dogs have an actual vest, so it
And they're registered.
yeah, so it's there. I know for sure that they're actually I don't want to diminish service animals because people need them, but yeah.
Okay.
At this point in time, that's the way that the policy is drafted. If you wanted to change that, I would recommend you come back with a amendment at our next meeting.
Okay.
Okay, and I think you could make that. You could propose that amendment as part of the agenda item when we discuss it.
Okay. And my second one was, after reading all this, my concern is, and what we've ran into in the past, is that we don't have the right to go onto property when we have a complaint of a possible puppy mill. Is that covered anywhere in here? No, everything refers to a permit.
Good. I'll just get the clerk to specify. Or actually, CAO.
I'll just generally say that we'll review this with our bylaw enforcement services, as they know the legalities around entering private property,
okay, yeah.
the rights of the township to do so, and under provincial legislation, and we'll make sure that the revised bylaw that comes forth to council ensures our proper rights to access property, whether with or without notice, whether with or without a license.
I hate to see somebody slip through the fingers of the law because we didn't have it in our bylaw or something, so that's all.
Good, so we'll take that away as an actionable item, is just for staff to come back and have confirmation that the bylaw officer has confirmed the authorities that they have or do not have in accordance with this. Good. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Tabbert.
Yes. What constitutes a purebred? I can say a cock-a-doodle-doo my dog is a purebred, but what constitutes a purebred?
Can you reference where?
Oh,
where you saw
sorry,
that?
it'd be 3.B1.
Sorry, say it again?
3B1. I think it's 3 because I have 4.5, maybe I'm wrong. Yep, under licensing and identification system. Number 3, if you go down to, oh, hold a minute. Sorry, no, I have the page turned over. It's it'd be 4.4B1. Under kennels.
Through you, Chair. I can add a definition in the bylaw for purebred puppies.
Excellent.
Okay.
Point noted.
And I have one more question. Following the event in Palmer Rapids, do we have anything about rescues in here? As to how many they're allowed to, a rescue can keep, or for how long, or do they have a grace period? I mean, that was a lot of dogs, so I'm just curious, if they don't find fosters and they don't have a kennel license, what do they do with the animals that they can't foster out within, let's say, a week or, a day or 3, whatever, but.
Good, so we'll recognize publicly that there's nothing in here about rescues. I think the definition is expanded to include not-for-profits. But CAO, I know you're poised to make a comment. Maybe not.
Whoops.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I think the definition of kennel includes the boarding of dogs. It's not, everybody thinks kennel, they think the breeding of dogs, but it includes the boarding, the training. So other facilities are included within kennels. We don't speak to the rescue piece, the temporary kennel. Perhaps as part of our engagement with the community over the next couple of weeks, we could connect with, as I understand it, a current rescue facility in our community to get a better understanding on how they manage that and whether or not they'd be prepared to apply for a license or whatever process may work for them and may work for the township. So leave it with us. We'll communicate with them as to the approach that they use and see how we can work it into our bylaw. Thanks.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? No, it's good. Any other questions or comments from council? Excellent. Well, sorry, CAO, you have a comment. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, just to the general public who wish to provide comments on the bylaw, on our township website, we do have a section called projects. So within that project section, we will be adding a new project called the Animal Control Bylaw Review. And the draft bylaw will be available there. And it'll indicate how you provide comments, whether that's directly by email to our clerk or whether there'll be a comment form attached. We'll also provide public notice through our social media feed as well. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, CAO. I think that's a great first draft to come forward. We look forward to the public comments and being able to move this step forward. Good. Based on that, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you. Next item on our agenda, notices of motion. Deputy Mayor. Good. Now I'm going to swing all the way over here. Councillor Olmsted, none. None. Councillor Moore? Councillor Tappert? None. Excellent. Item number 8, adoptions. Sorry, I should make a note. No notices of motion noted. Item 8 is adoption of minutes. Now, March 1st, regular council minutes. So the recommendation is that the Council of Township of Whitewater Region approve the regular minutes of March 1st, 2023. A mover and a seconder. So moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Any discussion, any comments, changes, omissions? None seen. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. Item number 9, correspondence, 9.1. The Valley Earth Day, Kitchissippi, the Ottawa Valley chapter. CAO, you're going to make a note on this?
Allow me just 1 second, I could. So essentially, we've received a submission from the Valley Earth Day Association to recognize, to invite people of all ages in the Ottawa Valley who are concerned about our environment to create banners, posters, and other means of expressing hopes and fears about climate matters. So they will be having activities held on Saturday, April 22nd. And what we could do is through our social media feed, share that information with our residents. So just to highlight that there's a recognition of Earth Day that's going to be held in April. Thanks.
Thank you, CAO. The next item, 9.2, the new medical officer of health announced. Just an important note, we have been without a medical officer of health, an acting one that we've shared with Ottawa and district. This new member of health, and I've lost his name, Dr. Oh, my agenda item doesn't have the right attachment.
Dr. Morgan Stern.
Morgan Stern. He is actually he was born and raised in Pembroke, so he's coming back home, and they're looking forward to having Dr. Morgan Stern, a new member of the team. So good for the community, good for our residents. And the last item is 9.3, the county council summary. So this is provided by the CAO at the county level, and it provides a summary of all the discussions that took place and the bylaws that were passed at county council on March 1st. And it's there not just for the public, but also for you as members of council. If there's something there that you would like more information on, or feel that there should be something that we could have a subsequent implication for the local level, I look forward to you either engaging me or the CAO on that. Good. Is there any comments or questions or from council on any of our 3 items? Excellent. We'll move on. Item number 10. Good. So this is bylaws, and what I'd like to do is propose that we bring forward our bylaw procedural. I've lost the language. Procedural bylaw amendments as an additional bylaw for approval this evening, if there's a mover and a seconder available from council, we would have we would require a 2/3 vote to bring forward item 23-03-1588 and include it in our list of bylaws listed at 10.1. Is there a mover and a seconder? Deputy Mayor will move it. Councillor Trim will second it. Any discussion with that motion? None seen. All those in favor? Oh, did you have a question? Yes, Councillor Umstead.
Sorry, yeah, just the one big question is timing. So that means the first meeting in April would move to the earlier date, or earlier time.
Correct.
Great, thank you.
That's good. We'll recall for a vote. All those in favor? And the motion is carried. We will now add item bylaw 2303-1588 to item 10.1. Clerk is nodding.
That's correct. And if I just may, because the confirmatory bylaw has to be last, if we can just as amended and change the confirmatory bylaw to 2303-1589.
Yes, for those that are taking note of that, the confirmatory bylaw is the last bylaw on our list of bylaws. It's 10.1. Its number will now be amended to 2303-1589. Good. So the recommendation before us is, be it resolved that the bylaws listed and amended on the March 15th, 2023 agenda be taken as read and passed. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Olmsted, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Any comments or questions from council? No? Oh, Councillor Moore?
Welcome, Curtis McGonigal.
It's in the bylaw?
Oh, in terms of the appointment of the treasurer, yes. Yes. Whew, you had me, I didn't know what was going on. Okay, so just a point for public on that. One of the bylaws listed, the second one, is the actual appointment, officially, by council, of our new treasurer, Treasurer McGonigal. So again, welcome formally to the township. Good. Any other questions or comments? None? I call for a vote. All those in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you. Next, closed session. Clerk, is there a closed session tonight? No closed session this evening. And therefore, we will adjourn. Do I need a motion to adjourn? I do not need a motion to adjourn. It's already on the agenda. The meeting is adjourned at 6:53 p.m. Thank you, everybody.